So welcome everyone to this Reading for Life project on World Book Day with an amazing author called Danielle Brown. What an amazing place to be. And my name is Kat Williams, and why I'm here, so I'm the founder of a company, it's called Building Your Confidence. And what I love about this project with Children Today, which is an amazing charity, it's all about building the confidence of us all, but especially, did you know that only less than 4% of children's books will feature disabled characters or neurodiverse characters? So a big part of this project is also about kind of recognizing that sometimes in stories we're not always seeing ourselves, especially if we might have differences that you don't often see in stories. And so it was founded by an amazing man called Hugh, and he had two small children about 30 years ago. And he was going on bike rides with them down by the seaside. And he kind of realized one day, he went, gosh, what about children that maybe can't ride normal bikes and normal trikes and things like that? So he founded this charity called Children Today to help disabled children to have adapted trikes and equipment. And that's what they still do to this day, and they still support many families. And like I said, I specialize in helping people with confidence. I'm a counselor, I'm a therapist, and Danielle's wonderful books, as our amazing author today, also support people with, I think Danielle will agree with me, how they feel about themselves, how they're telling the stories in their own mind of what they're capable of. And we have the most amazing book today that Danielle's going to share with us. So I'm going to go straight over to Danielle, and feel free to introduce yourself a little bit. Danielle, tell us about your story and what brings you here.
Absolutely. So I actually have some slides to share, so please bear with me, but I think that it always looks nicer with pictures as well. So Kat, if you could just let me know if you could see this.
Yes, I can see them.
Perfect. So yeah, I just thought I'd do a little bit of an introduction to me. I am a children's author. I've written 4 books, another one out in July as well, taking me up to 5, which is super exciting. And I've always wanted to write from when I was 4 years old. That was my earliest memory of what I wanted to be when I grew up, and it took me a long time to actually get there. I took a bit of a detour on the way, and I've got a video to show you what my past career used to be. So here we go. I'm Danielle Brown, I'm 22 and I do archery. I find that my archery helps my disability in the sense that when I'm training, when I'm competing, I'm not actually focusing on the pain. I don't think there's any point going to an event like London 2012 and not wanting to do the very best you can.
What does it take to be the best in the world? I've asked myself that question thousands of times in my own quest to become the world record shattering, gold medal winning archery champion.
I do get a bit nervous before a competition, but then again I figure if you don't get nervous it doesn't matter to you, so what's the point of doing it?
You need to stop ruling yourself out of the game before you start playing. And you don't get to be the best in the world by accident.
We're not born to succeed. It's not something that's already been decided for us. Instead, success is a choice. We get to choose whether we're successful or failures.
When it comes to my archery, I am very single-minded as to what I want. If you don't put the work in, you're not going to get the results of the competition.
That's brilliant, Danielle. Thank you for sharing that. Can you remind me of some of those figures? So how many golds, how many medals? Just some of those high, because I haven't seen that before. That's incredible.
Yes, yeah, no. So I won 11 major gold medals through my career. So 2 Paralympic golds, one in Beijing 2008 and in London 2012 as well. But I was also the first disabled person to represent England as an able-bodied competitor at the Commonwealth Games. So yeah, I was world #1 in my career as a Paralympic athlete, and I made it into the top 10 as an able-bodied athlete.
Amazing. And I hope that video has really inspired some of the children watching it already. And what's just come into my mind, like, you know, I love how it's archery as well. I love that visualization of there's nothing more sort of like, you know, thinking about really going for what you care about, is there, than really focusing on that target. So I find that really inspirational, hopefully for the children watching as well. It's kind of, it might not be archery, but focusing on a goal and aiming for something is like a life, you know, thing, isn't it? Like you say, success is something that you choose to say, I'm going to aim for that. And I love that. It's all there in that video. What an amazing.
Yeah, and it's super visual as well. When I talk about archery, bows and arrows, people don't always realize that they're quite that technical. So love being able to show a video or photos of it.
Oh, incredible. And is there anything else you want to tell us before we actually go into the reading of the book? Should we do that? Should we go straight in, or do you? And just to mention, I didn't mention at the very start. Please put some questions in the chat. Those that are watching, so you might already have questions for Danielle based on that video. You might have some more questions that come in as she's going to read part of this book. So she'll introduce us to the book she's going to read from today, and then we'll go straight in to Danielle reading it.
Yeah, I want to talk about the importance of role models because they're really very important. As an athlete, I struggled a little bit with not being able to see role models. Like as growing up, I didn't see many female athletes out there. I didn't realize that I could have a career in sport. I didn't see very many disabled role models. In fact, I could name one disabled person growing up, which was Stephen Hawking. And I found that really difficult. When I became disabled, I was 11 years old. I have a condition called complex regional pain syndrome. It's a bit of a mouthful. It gets called CRPS for short, and it means I'm in a lot of pain in both my feet all the time. So it makes walking around very difficult. I can't run. I use crutches most of the time to get around, but I do use a wheelchair as well for longer distances. And I found it really, really hard actually, because I didn't see many other people with disabilities. It wasn't until I went to the Paralympics and going there and just seeing the most amazing people, being in that Olympic village when there's thousands of people from all over the world, all competing, all with different disabilities and conditions. It was just amazing to be part of that, because do you know what the important thing was? It wasn't about what they couldn't do. It wasn't about their disability. It was all about their ability, and it was about what they could do. And for me, that's a really, really important message, focusing on that part, because whenever I'd seen disability in books or on TV, people felt very sorry for disabled people. I really didn't like that. So that's what I do when I write. So as I said, I've written 4 books so far, 4 books published, but I love making sure that there is lots and lots of really powerful role models that we can tap into, because it's just so important to not just lose yourself in a good story, but to be able to find yourself. And I'm really privileged that I get to travel not just the country, but I get to travel all over the world to share my story as an athlete, but also to share some of the stories in the books that I write. So yeah, should we dive straight into the reading now, Kat?
Yes, I think so.
that
That would be
fun?
brilliant.
Perfect stuff. Perfect. So, girls' rules. So the reason I wrote this book, this is a non-fiction book. It features 50 female leaders from all over the world, and they come from different time periods. They come from lots of different countries around the world, and they've achieved lots and lots of different things. And you know, it's really tough just picking 50 for the book. And I've had to pick just 3 to talk about today. So I am going to share 3 stories that really, really inspire me. So I don't know if can you see my screen? Just checking.
Yes, I can see you and a separate screen.
That's amazing, because you know, I think it's really important to see the pictures as well. You know, books not just all about the writing. And the first role model I want to talk about is really quite topical. It is World Book Day today, but on Saturday it's also International Women's Day. And this
Just
amazing...
sorry, Danielle, can you see the message from Lexi? Yeah, we can't see. She's saying about page 7, perhaps, that shows the right picture. I don't know. We're looking at the slideshow you've showed us already.
Right. Let me try again. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Letting me know. Always good to check this. Can you see this now? Oh.
Hopefully it's going to come up. It's blank at the moment.
Oh, we did test it earlier.
Tech, be our friends. Come on, tech.
Oh dear. If not, we might just have to jump into it, but let's is it come up now? Oh yes, slide 7 showing.
Oh good. I can't see it, but if Lexi says she can, that's great.
Perfect. So yeah, the first chapter is Sophia Dalit Singh, and she was a princess without a kingdom. Her father, the Maharaja of Punjab, was once head of the mighty Sikh Empire in India, but after the British took his country, he was 15 years old when that happened, and he was sent to live in Britain. Here he got on really well with Queen Victoria, who gave him an allowance to live off. The Maharaja was very popular at the royal court, and he built a great big palace in the Suffolk countryside. And when she grew up, Queen Victoria was her godmother. So Princess Sophia was a big celebrity at the time. She wore all the latest fashions. She was invited to every party going. But while she enjoyed the high society life, she was also curious about her cultural heritage. She and her sisters wanted to attend a party for King Edward VIII's coronation, or 7th, coronation in Delhi, but the government had forbidden her family from travelling to India. And she decided to go anyway. Out in the country of her ancestors, Sophia discovered a shocking truth. Her people were suffering. Colonial rule, so British rule, had caused poverty, starvation, and inequality on the most devastating scale. Seeing everything that her family had lost woke something up inside her. So she went to India as a self-obsessed party girl, but came back with a purpose. In London, she heard the cries of women fighting for the right to vote, and she joined them. Using her position as a princess, she called in favours and raised large sums of money. She broke the law by refusing to pay her taxes. Why, she asked, should I pay taxes when I've got no say in how they're spent? Her former friends didn't understand, and they shunned her as she stood outside her home at Hampton Court Palace selling the suffragette newspaper. On November 18th, 1910, 300 women marched on Parliament with Sophia at the lead. The protesters were met by police, but instead of being arrested, they were violently beaten. Sophia broke through the cordon and fought off a police officer who was hurting another woman. This day became known as Black Friday. It's a very, very important day in history. But when World War I broke out, women stopped their campaigning to support the war effort. Sophia turned her attention to raising funds for Indian soldiers who were fighting in the British Army, often without proper equipment or clothing. She also volunteered as a nurse, caring for soldiers who'd been wounded in the fighting. In 1918, some women over the age of 30 were given the right to vote. In 1928, all women over the age of 21 could vote. Sophia could have opted for a life of parties and privilege, but instead she used her position to help change the world. So I really love this story because I just think, so many women fought really, really hard in order for us to have a vote, have a say. And, she didn't have to do what she did, but it was just really, really important to drive that change. And she faced immense hardship. That was really, really tough, but she did it anyway. So that is my first chapter.
Brilliant, amazing story.
Super.
Oh, what's the second one? I can't wait to.
I know. Yeah, now we're going back in time, and we are going back to ancient Greece, which is really, really fun. So this is the story of Artemisia of Caria the First. There was a second one after her, but we're looking at the first one here. And she was named after the Greek goddess of the hunt. Like her namesake, she was fearless and brave and wise. She was born 2,500 years ago and ruled the city-state of Halicarnassus in an ancient region of Caria, which is now in what we call Turkey. So at the time, Greece and Persia were long-term enemies, and Xerxes, the new Persian king, was out for revenge. His father had been defeated by the Greeks in the Battle of Marathon 10 years before, and he raised the largest army the world had ever seen and prepared to invade Greece. Artemisia was required to send 5 ships of fighting men to Xerxes. There was no need for her to join her crew, but she chose to fight and quickly established herself as a brilliant tactician. Artemisia sailed with 2 flags on her ship, a Greek one and a Persian one. When she saw a Greek ship, she flew the Greek flag, so they thought she was a friend. But when their ship got close enough, she attacked them. The Greeks placed a bounty on her head, 10,000 drachma to the person who caught her. That's almost $500,000 today. The Greeks were losing ground, and they decided to take a stand at Salamis. Xerxes gathered his commanders. He asked whether he should meet the Greeks in battle at sea. One by one, his commanders agreed with this plan. Only Artemisia said no. The Greeks are better at fighting at sea, she said. It's better to stay close to shore and play to our strengths. Xerxes liked her honesty, but decided to go ahead with the naval attack. Even though she disagreed with the decision, Artemisia still fought in the Battle of Salamis. The Persians were lured into a trap and suffered a terrible defeat. They lost 300 ships that day. Artemisia survived the battle, and even though they'd lost, afterwards Xerxes praised her highly. He sent her a full suit of armour and said she was his bravest and wisest commander. He also asked for her advice. Should he retreat to Persia and leave his general in charge, or stay and continue to fight? Artemisia told him to go home. If Persia won, the glory was his. If they lost, the failure belonged to his generals. Artemisia was praised by both Greeks and Persians for her intelligence and leadership, and it is very unusual for a person to be spoken of so highly by their enemies. And what I really, really loved about this story is that it's really, really tough sometimes if you're in a group of people and everybody's saying one thing. It can be really hard to be that one voice that says, no, I don't agree with this. This isn't right for me. Even though deep down, that's how you feel. Sometimes we find ourselves saying yes and agreeing to something that we don't really believe in because we feel like we have to, because everybody else thinks it's okay. And I just think it's absolutely amazing that in that whole room full of people, she was the one person, she stood up and she stayed true to what she believed in. So I think she is super, super inspiring.
Yes, and I love that. And often I find when the first person that has the courage, like you say, and the strength to say, actually, I don't think that's right. Or maybe thinking back to when I was young, I wouldn't say, I don't understand that. But actually, then lots of other people say, I don't understand it either. So, to be the first person to say no, or to say, actually, I'm not sure about that, you suddenly realize you're not the only one. So in this case, she seems that she was the only one, which is even more courageous to say, no, I really disagree, and no one else agrees with me. But what a brilliant story, like you say, that moment especially. Fantastic.
Yeah. And we have one more chapter. And this time we're going to go all the way to the USA. And we are looking at Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And you can probably tell by the way she's dressed, but she was a lawyer. She was a judge, and a very, very famous one. So at school, Ruth noticed that the boys got far more opportunities than girls. It was unfair that they got to build things, she thought, whilst girls had to learn how to sew and cook. This wasn't the only time in her life that Ruth would deal with gender discrimination. Throughout her career, she faced many barriers, but she would go on to make sure that other girls would never have to fight as hard as she did. Ruth met her husband, Martin Ginsburg, at university, and they both won places at Harvard Law School. There were only 8 other women in Ruth's class of 500 students. Even so, the dean once asked them why they thought they deserved to take those places from men. When Martin was diagnosed with cancer, Ruth went to his classes as well as her own, taking notes so he didn't miss anything during his treatment. She still finished at the top of her class. Getting a job wasn't quite so easy. Many places turned her down because she had a young daughter at home, and they didn't think that a woman would be up to the task. Eventually, Rutgers University took her on as an assistant professor, but she was paid less than the men. Ruth and the other women working at the university came together to fight this, and they won. Women all over the country were facing similar challenges, and Ruth decided to do something about it. She fought many cases on behalf of the American Civil Liberties Union, arguing against gender discrimination. Inequality affected everybody, she pointed out, not just women. She argued 6 cases, winning 5 of them in the Supreme Court, the highest court in the USA reserved for the trickiest cases. Real change, enduring change, happens one step at a time, she said. Because of her outstanding work, Ruth was invited to become a judge, first on the Court of Appeals and then on the Supreme Court. Only 9 judges sit in the Supreme Court, and Ruth was only the second woman to be appointed. She didn't always agree with her colleagues, writing passionate statements called dissents about why she believed their decision was the wrong one. When she disagreed, she wore a special collar with her robes. Sometimes her dissenting statements were so powerful that they affected future laws. Ruth served on the Supreme Court until the day she died at the age of 87.
Wow. What passion. That's incredible.
Yes.
Amazing. Inspirational. So I do encourage those watching. What 3 brilliant stories we've had there. And I'm hoping there may be some questions coming in to the chat for Danielle, either about this book, about Danielle herself, about any of the stories, these 50 stories in here. I hope that sparked some questions. So let's see if some will come in. But in the meantime, I have some ready, lots in fact. But so you've already mentioned how difficult it was to decide on these 50 stories. I guess, how long did it take you to decide? How did you go about that process? And yes, just tell us a little bit about that, how you chose the 50.
Yeah, so it was tricky. There are more than 50 amazing women in the world that have achieved brilliant things. I wanted to find lots of different stories of people from different historical time periods. I think we sometimes look back in time and we say that different groups, whether that's women, whether that's disabled people, we do see that they've had it really, really tough, and they absolutely have. There've been lots and lots of barriers for many, many people, but there have been a smattering of success stories, and I think it's really important to shout about that because we don't hear about that very often. So it was about trying to capture that. I wanted people from all around the world as well. One of the benefits of being an athlete is I got to travel to lots of different countries all around the world, which was one of my favorite parts of being an athlete. I think you learn so much by visiting different countries. So I wanted to share stories just to show that different countries have different rules, different beliefs, different cultures, and that plays a really important part with how we see leaders and what those people go on to achieve. But and I also wanted to show different types of achievements. People can go out there and really do anything. You can be a judge or a warrior. You can be a lawyer or an architect or an athlete. There are so many different things that you can go out there and do and be. So that's what I wanted to get across. It was just about finding amazing people with amazing stories and writing about them.
And it's so brilliant. One of my favorite things is on the insides of the covers. If the children have it says here, as you said, there's Paralympian, queen, ballerina, paleontologist, model, chemist, artist, all these amazing words. So it's, yes, just, I love that variety. And like I say, also from around the world, different countries, different ages of women, just everything, and beautiful pictures. One thing I wanted to ask you was, how hard was it? I can see that each story is about the same length, which must be quite hard, especially someone like Ruth that you've just told the story of. She worked until 87. There must have been quite hard to make every story, no matter how complex and how, wide almost, into very few words. You must have thought, how am I going to get everything I want in there? So was that difficult? How long did it take you to sort of do that, over and over again?
Yes, it was tricky, and I think that's a really good point. And it's something when I do a lot of work with schools, I help children, young people with their writing skills. And what I find is that when we think about school, we're given a question to answer and you write it all down. And that's it, it's done. But actually, when we come to writing books, that's not how we work. We start off doing all the research, then we write it down, and whatever we write doesn't stay like that. I change it, I chop it around, I'm like, this is an important bit, this isn't so important, and you go through it again and again and again until you get it right. And then, because when you look at something, you don't always see the right things, you don't always see the mistakes that you make. You get somebody else to look at it, a bit like your teacher. They look at your work and they mark it and they say, this is how you can make it better, or they take bits out and add things in. So I worked really closely with my editors so that all of the chapters were the same length.
That's brilliant. And obviously an artist as well. Who does the illustrations are really, really important, aren't they, in this book? So did you love seeing, because I think it was either you that said or another author on these brilliant calls that we're doing that mentioned that you don't get to choose sort of maybe the artist or the illustrator, so you must have almost been surprised, is that right to say, wow, look at how it's come to life? Is that true, or did you get involved with that?
No, and you know what? Like, I love writing. I'm getting better and better at it. The more I do it, but I'm not very good at art. I could probably draw a stick figure. So the pictures in here are absolutely amazing. But I don't choose the artist. So the publisher picks that for you, and then all of a sudden, all the words that you've written, it kind of comes to life. You get an email saying this is what it looks like, and you're like, wow. For me, this book is just so full of color. It's really bright and vibrant, and I absolutely love the design style as well, because as I said, 50 stories of amazing leaders around the world, and you can actually really tell who they are from the pictures. So I think the illustrator's done an amazing job.
Yeah, I really, really like that as well. Amazing. And I'm just, hopefully some questions will come in. Please send them into the chat, because it's lovely to hear from you all. But another question I have is just, I think you've already mentioned that you had this sort of double dream, how I would put it, like kind of you always loved books, you always wanted to write, but then you had also that drive of being a sports person. So did they always go side by side, or was there a moment like are you still doing quite a lot of sport now, or are you very much more author, and was there almost a moment when that switched over? Tell us a little bit about how that felt, I suppose, to go from sports person to author, or were you kind of always both?
Oh yeah, no. So I spent lots of time umming and ahhing what I wanted to do when I was older. I didn't know that, and I had lots of different ideas. And I think that's really good to have lots of ideas. I fell into sport by accident. I just got better and better and better at it. I actually did a law degree at university, so my plan was to get a really quite sensible and boring job as a lawyer. And when I was at university, archery took over. And when I finished, I had a choice. Do I do archery, the sport, or do I do law? I just spent 4 years working at university to get my degree. And I chose archery because it was the thing that I was really passionate about. But being an athlete, it is quite tough. It's something that you've got to spend a lot of time doing. I was shooting thousands of arrows every week, so spending a lot of time doing it. But I still wrote. I wrote for fun. For me, writing was just it was just a way to express myself, get really creative. And I was really rubbish at it. I could write long stories, I could write books, but I wasn't great at it. But the more I did it, the better I got. Once I'd retired from sport, I had a bit more time on my hands, and I just started to. I fell into non-fiction, which I'd never expected to do. I always loved writing the fiction side of things, but yeah, non-fiction was where I found actually I'm not actually that bad at this. I can do this, and I love the research. So yeah, it was sort of one then the other. And as for sport now, I still do a little bit for fun, but mainly focusing on writing.
Oh, amazing. Fantastic. And we've got, I don't know if you can see the questions, but I can see them. So I'm going to choose from those. Thank you so much to, might be Ms. Hookway, might be Mr. Hookway, I'm not sure, in your class. So we've got quite a few there. So I'm going to choose, I like this one. You've got a question. What was the hardest medal that you've achieved? Because you were mentioning there about those thousands and thousands of arrows. So I think that's what sparked that question, perhaps, of kind of what was the hardest medal?
Yeah, it's very interesting, actually. A lot of people think it was the able-bodied medals that I won. So as an able-bodied athlete, I won a World Cup indoors, and I won a gold medal at the Commonwealth Games. But actually, it was London 2012, a Paralympic event, and that was really, really tough because I'd won the gold medal in Beijing. I'd won the World Championships the year after, the European Championships the year after that, the World Championships again, and then 4 years later, we're back round in 2012. So I'd won everything. I'd been world number one the whole time, and the pressure to stay at the top was so tough. You know, everybody expected you to win, and it was a really hard place to be. And in fact, every single week that year, journalists would ring me up and they'd say, "You're the hot favourite. You must be under a lot of pressure. How do you feel?" And it was like, great till you asked me that. It's putting more and more pressure on. So it was really, really tough. But I went out there and I managed to cope with it and just came away with the gold, and being able to win that on home soil as well. It's the first time my family and friends had seen me compete internationally, and it was just amazing.
I love that. And that really, really does show, like you say, that focus and just sort of not letting that pressure in somehow. Wow, amazing that you could do that. And you must have felt incredible, like you say, to have all of that expectation and then to meet it. So absolutely brilliant. And I just want to ask you a quick question. If you could, you mentioned that you became disabled at 11, and if you could, well, if your 11-year-old self, like, what do you think you would go back and say to yourself at 11, because she couldn't possibly have imagined everything you've achieved? Like, what do you think you'd say to yourself if you could go back?
Well, I think it's really tough, isn't it? When you look to the future, you don't always know what you can achieve. And I think it is perfectly normal to sometimes worry about that. I do believe that most people really want to do quite well in life. They want to be successful, they want to achieve, but sometimes it's quite difficult to know whether you can. And the time that I grew up in, not seeing very many disabled role models, not seeing very many female role models, that made it even harder, because I'm like, how do I break through those barriers? How do I actually get there? So that was really tough. But if I go back, I think it's just about saying, have the confidence to give it a go. Just jump out your comfort zone, have that courage. Even if it doesn't go right the first time, it's not going to be the end of the world. At worst, you come away learning something new, and that's an amazing thing that helps you get better for next time. So yeah, it's just about having that courage and confidence to take that step, and it's amazing where it can take you.
Yeah. So brilliant. We've got some more lovely questions. I'm going to start with quite a tricky one. If you could choose only one book to read for the rest of your life, this is a really hard question, which would it be and why? Maybe it would be this one. I don't know. What you
Oh my goodness. No, that is really tough, because I do love reading. And I think that if anybody listening here wants to become an author, that's sort of my biggest advice for you, is to read and read and read, because that's where you're going to learn. And it's really important to read lots of different things as well, because you just pick up on different styles, you learn different authors' approaches. So I love reading, and I don't actually have a favorite book. Let's see, what would I pick? I mean, it's a bit of a cop-out, but I really like the Throne of Glass series, but there's 7 in there. So that's sort of more of they're quite big, chunky fantasy books. But I am reading Turtle Moon to my nephew at the minute, and that's a pretty good book with a really nice message all about the environment, and he's very much enjoying that, and I'm enjoying reading it to him.
Amazing. Turtle Moon. Brilliant. And another question that might even be harder, I don't know. Can you choose a favorite from your books?
Oh, yes, I probably could. So the books that I've written Be Your Best Self, which was my first one, and I did enjoy writing that. I actually wrote that one with an 8-year-old boy. My co-author Nathan was 8 when we wrote it, and that was really fun. I've obviously written Girls Rule that we looked at today. I wrote I worked with Captain Tom on one of his books, so I wrote that. It was after the COVID pandemic, and it was about 100 positive stories that came out of lockdown. But my favorite has to be Run Like a Girl. And that features stories of 50 female athletes from all around the world. Oh, there it is. Yep. And I really love doing that, because obviously with my background in sport is really, really important to me, because I think that it teaches you so many lessons. And I'm really, really sorry to all the teachers on here, but sport has been my best and biggest teacher. You know, it taught me some really important skills. It taught me how to set goals. It taught me confidence. It taught me the courage, resilience. It taught me communication. So sport, I learned so much from. And I think that anybody who practices sport picks up these amazing, amazing skills. So being able to share a book of lots of different sports, lots of amazing role models from around the world with really inspiring stories that are not just fun to read, but actually teach you really important messages, it was just really fun to write and research, and absolutely loved doing that one.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, and it's right here, as you can see. So a couple of questions about the book process. So I'll put them together, like whether you sell your books worldwide, and how long. You sort of answered it, I think, maybe a little bit already, but how long did it take to write those books? Was one a lot longer than the others, I suppose? And, you know, how long, and roughly speaking?
Yes, yeah. So it's taken probably about 3 months to write a book. And I do work as well, so I'm not doing this full time. I find time in my day to squeeze it in. But it's about 3 months from start to finish, and that's quite hard, especially the books that I write. I have to do a lot of reading, a lot of research, because making sure I get the facts right is very, very important. So yeah, that's how long it takes me. And in terms of selling it worldwide, I absolutely do. I spotted one a few weeks ago in New Zealand, so that was pretty cool. Be Your Best Self has been translated into Italian and Russian, and all my books are over in the US as well. And it's really cool just getting to see your book. We call it out in the wild. If you see it in a bookshop, it just feels really amazing to see it on shelves, and then to see it abroad as well. See pictures of people reading it in different countries is really cool.
Oh, I love that. And we have a new question in. Thank you again to this class. Do you think you relate to any of your characters? Is what it's asking.
Absolutely. So, I think books are a brilliant way to escape. It's this amazing space that you can lose yourself in the pages. But I think if you look at characters, you can really resonate with them, you can relate to them and find yourself. And as I said, when I grew up, I didn't see many disabled people out and about. So making sure that there are lots of people from, as I said, different countries, different abilities, different vocations. I think it's really important that you can find yourself in that and you can see somebody that may be a bit like you and you think, wow, if they did it, I can too. So that's really, really important. But it goes beyond just those traits and characteristics, whether they're female or they've got a disability or they're from a certain country. I think what's really important is the skills that people learn. So I love the really inspiring stories, where somebody's faced amazing, hard, difficult times, but they've pulled through the other side, because resilience is a really important skill for me. So reading about that is very, very important. And I think that, that different skills, different traits appeal to different people. So somebody reading the same book will find different characters and really relate to them, because those are the skills that they find important.
Yes, exactly. So we're coming towards the end. One of our classes has said thank you so much, but they've had to go. So we'll just come towards the last couple of questions, but I want to make sure I've asked, because I don't know who's asked them, so I want to make sure I've asked them for you. So you've maybe slightly answered these already, but just in case there's anything else to say. So we have one here. What did you want to be when you were younger? And what inspired you to be an author? So like I said, I think we've heard quite a bit about that, but anything different that you've not mentioned with those ones?
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, it did take me a long time to make my mind up. And you know what? It is okay to change your mind as you go through. So I've gone from being a sports person to writing books, to speaking, to owning my own business, to working in big companies as well. So it is absolutely okay to change your mind. But I think actually a really nice story to tell you about what inspired me to be an author is, as I mentioned before, it's something I always wanted to do. I tried and failed and tried and failed. And actually how I ended up becoming an author was I was speaking at an event about what it takes to be the best in the world. And this 8-year-old, Nathan, he came up to me and he said, have you written a book for children about how they can be the best they can be? It's like, I really want a book like this, but I can't find one anywhere. And I said, well, what a brilliant idea. And he thought about it. He came back, he said, can I write one with you? And I was amazed, because I always say yes to opportunities. If you get an opportunity, you might be a bit nervous, you might be a bit scared, but just say yes to it and you figure out how to make it work. And I was really amazed, because Nathan didn't have an opportunity to say yes to. He wanted this book, it wasn't there, but he thought of an answer, he thought of a solution, and that was to write the book. So we wrote it together, and we managed to come away with a book deal. So I think in some ways, like he inspired me to get into a complete different genre, into the non-fiction side of things. And it was a really fun process.
That's amazing. I love that, because you'd already mentioned Nathan. I was like, there's the Nathan. Gosh. Well, I think we'll wrap it up here, because it leads me really nicely into the final question that I ask authors on these calls, as you know. And it's a bit like that question Nathan was asking, which is if children feel they haven't got the confidence to sort of go and be the best they can be, and he obviously wanted to write that book, so kind of what does the book say, or what's your answer to that question, to kind of what can we leave the children watching with if they feel they can't quite do what they want to do? What would you say?
Oh, so confidence is something that's really important to me, and I think it's important, well, it should be important to everybody, because confidence is an amazing, it's like a magic ingredient that helps you achieve. And I think a lot of it actually starts by being a bit kinder to ourselves. I think sometimes it's really easy to put ourselves down and say, I'm rubbish at this, I'm rubbish at that. But actually just being a bit nicer and recognizing when you've done really well, and recognizing what you're doing. And even me now, like I've done all these amazing things in sport, and I'll be there busy working on my books. I'm thinking, wow, all these people have got amazing book deals, or they've managed to write this book. Somebody I heard wrote a book in 14 days. Takes me 3 months. I'm like, how did they do that? And sometimes I feel like I'm falling behind, and it's like, actually stop it. I need to be a bit kinder to myself. So it is something I do think we struggle with, but I think if you start using sort of much nicer words when you talk to yourself, congratulate yourself for doing well, and don't compare yourself to other people, that's really, really important.
I love that. And what I like to think of it, that I think you would agree, is I like to try and imagine I've got my own fairy godmother, that with me all the time, kind of just hovering here, only saying nice, encouraging things like you've said, don't compare yourself. You're doing really well. Be proud of yourself. So I try and have that positive voice all the time. So a magical kind of fairy godmother. So what a lovely place to round that off, I think. Thank you so much for those who've come on live, those that have watched the recording back as well. Hopefully, we've absolutely loved having you all with us. And I just want to say a huge thank you, Danielle. What a brilliant day, especially on World Book Day. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been absolutely amazing. And wishing everyone a lovely rest of your day.
Yep, and thank you for the brilliant questions. That was really fun.
Yes, definitely. They were perfect questions. Take care, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.